What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution here at the Revolution Watch Bar with two pretty amazing guys, right? Well, actually, I should say three because, of course, we have my trusty companion, Jeremiah.
Hey, guys.
But these are the two founders of one of the coolest brands that have been created recently. It's called Atelier Wen, and this is Tallendier and Wilfried Burion. How are you guys?
Well, great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you for being here. You know, we've been following the progression of this brand for some time, and we have to say it's incredibly cool. So if I'm not mistaken, it's a brand that was created to showcase the manufacturing and artisanal capacity available in China when it comes to watchmaking. Maybe Robin, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
How did this incredible adventure start for you?
For me, it goes back to much longer ago. So basically, when I started collecting watches, I was like 14 and my parents gave me a quartz Seiko chronograph for my birthday. I was so excited, but very quickly I started doing research online and I found out that if you're a true watch collector, you need an automatic watch. And so I became brainwashed the idea that I needed an automatic watch. And one day I went to my father and I was like, "Oh, Dad, can you give me 500 euros to buy a Tissot?" And he looked at me and he told me to fuck off. I didn't have a Tissot, but I still needed my automatic watch. So I started looking online, I started reading forums, and then I stumbled upon like nice automatic Chinese watches, which was super affordable, maybe for like 800 kwai, which is like 80 euros back then, you could get one. So I saved my pocket money for a year, and the next summer we went to Beijing and I bought my first one, my second one, my fourth one, and so on and so forth. And slowly I kind of started building a collection. And then by chance, I met someone who is like very involved in the local Chinese watch industry, the head of the local association. And this person became my mentor and took me under his wing. And for a year, when I was studying abroad at Beijing University with Wilfried, he basically made me visit like all the factories, all the artisans, all the watchmakers, all the craftsmen. And there I saw that you had people who were, I mean, of course, good that I knew, but like super passionate, super enthusiastic, for whom like their job was their life. You know, you would meet those old watchmakers who are in their 70s, and I just really love doing what they do. And I was like, that's so great. You would meet like those dial artists, and they were so passionate about it. They could talk about it for hours. But then when I would go back to the UK, I mean, I would tell my friends about it, and I would like, oh, but no, come on, like, you know, but in China, it's all those kids in the sweatshops, and I was like, that is so wrong and so far from what I saw, and I feel it doesn't do those people justice. Like it's not really fair. And I was like, I really want to share that passion, that beautiful thing with the world. And so that's where sort of I had the idea. And then like Wilfried came into place, and I think he can tell you the rest of the story as to how it moved from an idea to business. So
take it away, Wilfried.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I was the first customer of Atelier Wen in the sense that I was sold to the concept, right? Because Robin shared these stories with me, and I didn't come from a watchmaking, or big collecting background. I was an amateur. I followed, certain brands and so on and so forth, but I was not knee deep or like neck deep like Robin was, right? And so I was born in Hong Kong. I grew up more than half of my life in Asia. I spent a number of years in China. I spoke Chinese. Robin and I had been friends all throughout university, had studied in China together. And when we came back to the UK after spending a year in Beijing, Robin and I just happened to sit down, and he then spent an hour or two telling me where he'd been the whole previous year, where I hadn't seen him. He was like, I was going all around China and like, seeing all these watchmakers, etc. So we got really deep into conversation, and essentially, that evening I messaged him and I was like, okay, let's get back together tomorrow because we need to talk about this watchmaking thing. Like, I'm super intrigued. I am passionate about Chinese culture, about the language, and also I've been working in startups for a number of years, and I want to have something that's my own and build something that's my own, right? And this really resonates with me on so many levels. And so the next day we got back together and we talked about, okay, like, let's build this thing. And so from there, the next step was like figuring it out, right? How do we go from that idea to like starting a brand? And so our first designs were like by Robin, built on like what?
Yeah, so on GIMP, you know,
on
like,
GIMP. Oh
it's
my
like
God.
we had spent a day like finding a name, and we had like various weird names.
man.
And then I was like, oh, you know, like it would be so much easier if we work with like some existing components. So I was just like using GIMP to like make some kind of designs, but I have zero talents for those things, and I mean, still to this day, I'm absolutely terrible at that. So I would make those very weird mock-ups. I would send to him, and he'd be like, yeah, maybe it can be a tiny bit better. You know, you can do a bit more of this, bit more of
It
that.
wasn't tiny bit. Maybe it could be like amazingly better.
Yeah, I saw them actually recently. They were like terrible.
It was
they
terrible.
were genuinely terrible.
It was so bad.
And we were doing those survey with our friends, and I think our friends were the same. They were like, "Oh, it's a bit better."
They wanted to be nice.
So you were sending GIMP photographs to Robin.
Yeah, to
Robin told me about it, and I googled it.
yeah. I was like, look at that. I mean, I spent 6 hours doing this thing, and honestly, the result sucks. Like, I mean, you know, like people say, like through life, you figure out what are your strengths. I think those days I really figured out what is not my strengths. My strength was not design and not like a photo, like graphic manipulations. This I was so bad at it. But yeah, so we had to find some real designers at some point because my talents wouldn't do. And thank God, Wilfried went to do his master's in Beijing in Tsinghua. And I happen to know a teacher at a school which is called the Beijing Institute of Fashion Technology, which is one of the very few schools in China that still teach watchmaking design. And it happened that during the last year of study for the students, they had to do a sort of like year-long project where they need to make actually like a true product, like from beginning to end. And so that teacher friend of ours was kind of say, well, listen, you can have some of our students and that can be their projects. So how did that go? Because you were the one on the ground. Like,
So, I mean, looking back at how we started at Atelier Wen, like, I can't believe how much we hustled our way through it and how we managed to get these first products out. Like, I mean, no joke, we had $12,000. That's what we started the brand with.
6,000 each.
6,000 each. Yeah. So $12,000, but like a lot of favors called in, right? So like, got our designers to work for us for like this school project. I would go down there. It was on the other side of Beijing. I'd go there like multiple times a week. I'd sit with them in the studio and we worked through our designs. Thankfully, we were able to get it a little bit better than GIMP level Robin designs. And it took us a number of months to get those done, and we were pretty happy with them. Afterwards, through Robin's network, we got a number of introductions to manufacturers. Because of the goodwill, they were like, throwing us a bone. They were like, okay, we'll make the prototypes for free for you guys, right? And so, through all these favors and relationships and people just like goodwill, we managed to get these first prototypes out, right? And then everything hinged on like that first Kickstarter.
Yeah, but those prototypes took a really long time.
They took a really long
they
time.
were giving us favors, but I remember once, I think it was the April of like your master's years in Beijing. I went to Beijing to visit you.
Yeah.
And my parents came for maybe like 2-3 days. Yeah. And then we had dinner, and my parents were very puzzled about like, what is this project of ours and why it's not going anywhere. I remember you told them, you're like, oh no, it's going somewhere. And then you threw out those pieces of plastic from your bag, like pretty plastic bits of metal here and there. Oh look, this is like a blank case.
Were they impressed?
Just imagine. My parents were so impressed. They were like, I give you 2 weeks. But yeah, it really took some time. Like,
pieces of leather as well.
Very good.
Not straps, like leather.
Okay. Well, what I have to say is, and obviously this is a humorous conversation, but and may I just ask, Wilfried, what's your age?
I'm 27. Robin and I.
27 too. Yeah.
So it was interesting because I remember I was introduced to Robin last year. He came over to my apartment, which is now François Paul Journe's mother's apartment in the old town in Geneva. And we were looking at perception. And I remember talking to Jeremiah about it afterwards, and he was like, what do you like about it? And I said, it's interesting to me because these are both young guys, but they've created a watch that has both a singularity to it, a meaning to it also in terms of the capitalization of the artisan culture and manufacturing ability in China that's available, which is clearly incredibly impressive. And there's an extraordinary sensitivity to detail. I mean, there is a huge maturity to the voice in terms of what you've created, especially when I look at perception. And I said, don't you think it's strange because they're just in their 20s? And he said, what are some of your favorite bands? And I told him, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all this kind of thing. Even some of my favorite rappers. And he said, if I'm not mistaken, did they not all create their most seminal work when they were in their 20s?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, actually, you're right. So it was an interesting parallel. And then we started looking at the watch, and we're like, we just loved it because it was so mature in terms of its balance, right? I mean, 40 mm in terms of diameter, 9.4 mm in terms of thickness. I know that you guys pushed your movement manufacturer to create an even thinner version of it at 3.3 mm in thickness. The fact that you increased the power reserve from 38 hours to 41 hours.
Yeah.
The fact that it was 100 meters water resistant. And the fact that you had a micro adjuster integrated into the integrated bracelet.
And it is the V2 of the micro adjustment. Actually, like we had the first version,
Right.
then we redid it, so it's better to use, which took us the whole summer. But,
And then the whole idea that you were making like this really interesting intellectual sort of homage to Chinese, forgive me because I'm the only guy here that actually doesn't speak Chinese, Shun Mai architecture,
Sun Mao.
Sun Mao architecture. Which actually is joinery without any sort of nails or glue or anything else. And so I love the fact that you then decided to create a dial that was an homage to that by having it at multiple levels. 0.04 mm at the base, 0.05 mm on the level on top of that, and then the indexes go through the top surface and are held in place by the bezel. Is right?
The chaptering, which is elevated and like locking in the indexes.
And the fact that you did this all without any sort of glue or screws or whatever like that, as an homage to this already very intellectual and fascinating way of creating houses. Was really, I mean, extraordinary. You know, like it was so brilliant. And then obviously the touches of the watch, not only the extraordinary embossing of the guardian lion on the back with the mouth that shows you the rotor, but then of course these dials that are created by your master
Cheng, you can just say.
Cheng,
Master Cheng.
Master Cheng,
Yu Cai.
I gotta brush up my Mandarin here, and the extraordinary detail that was available in guilloche man, which incidentally I didn't realize was something that existed in China until Robin explained to me that he was so fascinated by guilloche man that he actually built his own guilloche man like machine
and got a patent for it.
And got a patent for it, which is incredible.
Multiple patents actually. For his machines.
I mean, okay, so talk to me about perception. Like, tell me about this watch, which to me has really it's on the ascent to becoming kind of a modern reference in the integrated bracelet sports category, but is something altogether of its own because of where it comes from, because of all these wonderful details.
I think what I want to know is like, how do you guys progress as well from your first collection, which is Porcelain Odyssey, right? It's a round-shaped watch, but it also had a lot of Chinese or Oriental motifs, and then progressing to this, amazing design with these curved sides on the perception case, which obviously comes from Chinese architecture. Right? How do you guys progress from that?
It's actually an interesting story, because between Porcelain Odyssey and Perception, there was sort of a long pause, which was intentional because we also needed the time to really think, take a step back, and had like maybe a better idea, a clearer one of where we wanted to go. We realized that, I mean, our goal, our dream is to really celebrate Chinese culture, Chinese watchmaking, show it to the world, like let people really like experience and feel the joy that we do feel. And we realized that in order to do this, I think we needed to be sort of like more absolute with our products, less compromises. Like the first series, Porcelain Odyssey, was a great watch, but it was also like fairly like budget oriented, because we thought that we would need to stay within a certain price bracket, and that meant like we had to do concessions, because I mean there's manufacturing costs. But with this one, we're like, you know what? Let's really just try to make it as best as we can. Let's not make concessions. Let's not give anything away. We want craft. Let's do real craft. Like let's do real guilloche. Let's do something that is like really what we aim to share with the world. So that was the first thing. The second thing is in terms of design. Like our goal is to really contribute to building a sort of like modern Chinese style in design. And the way for us to do it is to become like less figurative and more as to an interpretation of the key Chinese aesthetic and cultural themes. So oftentimes, you see those brands and they do like the Chinese edition, and honestly it's like some golden dragons and a bunch of character, and it's very, very cliche, and it's very like reductionist to like reduce like Chinese culture to those like just like gold and dragon. So the idea was to really like dig for principles understand them, and then apply them to the watch format. So as we're explaining Wei, I think the dial is really like the best embodiment of that, because we found this whole architectural principle, and then we just build the dial according to the principle. So it's not figurative, it's more like we took the thinking and applied it to the watch format. If we look at the watch, I'm going to remove mine, you look at the shape of the case, we took like those all like aesthetic lines and then tried to make them fit within the watch format. I mean, of course, we were interested in the like integrated bracelet jaw, because we felt like, well, that's something that people like those days. It could be a very interesting playground and interesting canvas. It could be nice to have our take on it. But yeah, to us, like perception really represent that step forward, both in terms of quality and craftsmanship, also in terms of design thinking. And it took us a lot of time. I think the pause was necessary. We couldn't just keep going without a break. Otherwise, what we would have had is a porcelain Odyssey version of an integrated bracelet watch, and that wouldn't have been what we should do. So yeah, we took that time off.
Well, you know, I actually feel that the integrated bracelet watch is in some ways also a perfect embodiment of the style that's pervasive in Asia today. You know, like if you go to Shanghai, for example, which is, it's an incredibly modern city. I mean, Singapore as well. I mean, look at the landscape here. It's a really forward-thinking and contemporary one. If you look at the way people are dressing, it's a combination of elegance, but sort of a relaxed, like a vibe to it as well. And the watch on this bracelet fits perfectly into those lifestyles, especially in a place like Singapore where you're so, you know, a lot of heat and humidity as well. You know? But guys, you know, what I want to talk about now is what's inside of this beautiful red box that's here on the table. So we've had the incredible privilege to work with Atelier Wen on a limited edition watch.
Privilege is ours.
Yeah, definitely. I think like we should
Super
be the
thrilled
ones
to have this
saying
card.
that.
You're very kind. But you know, let's get to the unboxing. Maybe Wilfried, I'll leave the honors to you, sir.
All right.
Yes.
So this is the Atelier Wen X Revolution collab piece, and let me unveil it for you guys, right? So just from the color of the box, you'll probably have a bit of a hint of what we've got in store for you guys. And let me open it up, right?
It's such an auspicious color. It's red all the way through.
Red, absolutely all the way through. So as I was telling Wei earlier, the amount of work that we put in the packaging here, again, it goes to in the same direction as what Robin was saying of not making any compromises. So frankly, we had another packaging earlier on, and when we received it, I called Robin. I said, we can't do this. What's the point, right? It's a normal packaging. It really doesn't kind of go in the same direction as all the effort that we've been putting around the watch. And so we redesigned everything from scratch, and the result is what you see here, which I personally love.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So cool. What does it say on the left side in Chinese?
Yeah. So the left is 时刻, which is the Chinese name of the series, Perception, right? So 时刻 means instant, moment, but it's also a kind of play on words because 刻 is also to engrave, right? So the engraving of time, if you will, which harks back to the guilloche that we have on the watch.
Very nice.
Right,
so
yeah.
cool.
All right, so let's open it up.
Whoa.
And here we have it. So the concept of the box was obviously, it works to contain all the key pieces. We've got a travel pouch here, the watch in and of itself, which we're going to talk more about in just a second. We wanted also to offer a pleasant experience when you first receive it. When you first receive a watch, it can be frustrating to have to go to your jeweler or your watchmaker to get it adjusted. So we have a screwdriver right here, so you can do the adjustment yourself. And we've got a booklet that's full of like super rich explanations about what the whole watch and the brand is about, right?
I've never read a more erudite booklet, actually.
Have you not?
No, it's almost poetic,
So
Who wrote the booklet?
that's going to be kudos to Ignatius, almost a recent team member,
Very nice.
who's got quite the way with words.
Yes, indeed. Clearly. Yes.
And so the whole concept of the box was to, again, in following up what we had with our first series, which was a disposable box, right? We we felt that, again, we didn't want to do something that was throwaway,
Right.
and you have 100 boxes in your closet, etc. And so the purpose of the box here is to be to have a continued purpose once you finish unboxing, right? And so these slots can actually be removed, and you can use this as a kind of table organizer, if you will, or as a jewelry box or what have you. So we already have some customers messaging us and being like, well, this is a gift for both myself and my wife, because she loves the box.
Nice.
Right? So
That's the best excuse to buy a watch.
exactly. So we've got the travel pouch here, obviously, which is like super nice. It's our own design. You've got the top flap here and an extra rubber strap right over here that just loops really nicely over the pouch, and a single pusher button here,
Right.
a single clip that tightens it up and fastens it really, really nicely. Now
I
getting
think
to the meat of it.
I think let's talk about the watch itself.
Let's talk about the watch. All
Robin,
right.
you want to take this part away because I know you work very hard on
yeah.
the color of the stuff.
Yeah, I think like before, we'll explain the name later because I think Wilfried will be more suited for that. But yeah, this dial has a very sort of like ruby red color. So how it came to be first is, as you said, we met in Geneva. And then I think a few weeks you called me, and we started discussing that, and you were like, oh wow, I really like those watches from the 90s with the red dial. And I thought it was really easy, we do salmon, we do blue, like red is just another box to tick. And God, I was very wrong because actually the way we color the dial is through PVD plating. And the thing with PVD plating is that you can't like mix and match to reach the desired color you want. You need to find an already existing plating solution of the color you like to do that. And it turns out that almost no one does like red PVD plating. So we went through an absurdly high number of companies that do PVD plating, both in Guangdong and in the rest of southern China. And eventually we found one, but the thing is so uncommon that every time we play it, actually we need to pay a furnace opening fee because we are the only customers who are asking for like red plating. Wow. And that took us months. You received the proto much later than we thought we would give it to you because we just couldn't find the red color, or it would be like a bit too dark, a bit brownish.
Yeah.
That's not really the vibrant red that you wanted. And I think it was right to wait because when you look at that color, so I'm showing you, it's super vibrant. It's sometimes it's almost like like a glittery ruby. I think it's very pretty, very beautiful. Sometimes it gets a bit more matte. A bit like more like almost pinkish. I really find it unique. I had never seen anything like that. So
Well, I think in particular with this sort of a panier or basket pattern that you chose, which is this circular panier pattern that really complements this color. It creates this extraordinary luminosity in the dial. And from a cultural perspective, I remember when the three of us were discussing it. You were like, listen, we've all collectively as a culture or as a race actually have been through so much in the last couple of years. I think it's really now time for us to celebrate life, celebrate living, celebrate loving. And so Wilfried came up with the perfect name for the watch, which is?
Yeah, so the name of this watch is a single character, xi, which means jubilation, celebration, joy, right? So as in xin xi, like auspicious New Year, right? So a single character, really nice, really simple. And I think perfectly embodies the idea behind this piece.
It's beautiful. And then, Robin, once you finally got the color of the dial right, then you have to get the color of the rotor right as well.
Oh yeah. Because we're a little perfectionists. So I was like, how nice would it be to get the red, the rotor like matching in terms of color. And also when I offered you that, I thought it would be so easy, like just tick a box. Actually, it's not. So no, we had to do it, but it turns out that when we were plating on tungsten, because the rotor is made of tungsten, because the movement is super thin, so you need like sufficient weight in the rotor, there would be like sort of like a chemical reaction occurring, and sometimes it would look brown. And when I say sometimes, most of the time it would look brown. And actually we had very big variability in results. So we did spend some time to refine the result, to play with like the thickness of the plating, to eventually get a sort of like consistent shade of red. But that was definitely not easy at all. But looking at it now, it's actually such a pleasure to marvel at. I have no other words besides it's cool.
It's absolutely stunning, and the embossing of the Lion Guardian in titanium has such a cool effect.
It makes it look like the lion smiling, right?
Yeah, like laughing out loud. And I think with the red, like his love is even more, visible and strong and dynamic. It's not like black. It's not something more. And I'd like to say something about the pattern, because as you said, it's like a circular, like a panier pattern. But initially, Master Chang suggested we do like 24 iterations, so 2 like between each markers. But then we push for 36, which is obviously prettier because you have sort of more details for the light to get trapped on. That definitely wasn't easy. Like till the end, it was like, it can get like very hard for me, because when you reach the center, it's so tiny that it's so easy for him to do a mistake. We still pushed, and looking at the piece today, I think it's very impressive. Yeah, how the light just get caught, and how it gives like this kind of like, you know, funnel or deep like effect, which is
perception, right?
Which is perception.
Robin, tell me also about the work you did with Mr. Liang to create this grade 5 titanium case.
Yes.
I know it's the second watch that features this grade 5 titanium case. The first was created in collaboration with our friend Austin Chu from Wristcheck. Hi, Austin. We love you, dude.
Hi, Austin.
But tell us about the development for this, because I have to say the case finishing is phenomenal.
Thank you. So actually, Mr. Liang was not very happy with working on that grade 5 titanium case, because truth to be told, it's very hard. And I mean, you look at it's hard both in terms of this metal is hard, and it's also a hard job. You look at the case, there's a lot of angles, there's a lot of different surfaces finished. So here you have like a sort of like very like vertical brushing, very strong. You have like mirror, like black polishing angles. You have a bezel that is like concave and fully polished.
You know, honestly, I mean, I'm stunned that you're able to deliver a watch at this price point with a mirror polished concave grade 5 titanium bezel and bevels throughout, not just the case, but also the bracelet as well. I mean,
well, thank you. And Liang told us it was really hard.
Yes.
It was like, I mean, it was hard to do. He would, I mean, use his like his drills like much quicker to do the polishing. He told us that it's only like his most experienced polishers that could work on that because it's just harder. The metal would get sticky past a certain point. So I mean, but it's not a fun metal to work with. But we're happy he did it. We're happy he collaborated with us on this one.
So and Robin, I think do you feel the fact that, you know, again, this watch is meant to be an embodiment or a symbol of what China is able to achieve at the very highest level, is motivational to all the people that are working with you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's really the goal. I mean, we want through this watch to showcase what this can be about, what the craft can be about, what the but I mean, quality both like, you know, in terms of craft and even in terms of design, in terms of all those stuff. We really want that watch to show the world that, look, this is what made in China can be about, and this is really cool. This is great. There are like so many talented people, talented friends, talented partners, and we really want to show that through.
Can we just take a look at the rubber strap as well? So guys, every watch comes also with a second strap. We decided to go with the white rubber. We actually tried the different color straps on the watch. So we tried black, which was too sober, gray, which, you know, didn't complement it so well, and white, we decided in the end looked phenomenal. It's also a watch that's transitioning into sort of summer as well. To wear it on your wrist during the warmer seasons is going to be great. And if I may remind you, if you're Singaporean, it's also the national colors of Singapore. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's your civic duty to buy one, but maybe it is.
But maybe.
But, you know, gentlemen, again, the watch is extraordinary. It's from a design perspective, a nuance and detail perspective, uniqueness, and in terms of what it expresses, and, you know, as a representation of what the two of you guys have achieved together. Really, bravo.
Thanks,
Wilfried, well done, sir.
Cheers, guys.
Robin, well done, sir.
Thanks,
job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.